Hello and welcome Yoga Goddess Academy members. Laura Weigel here with another lesson for you, and this one is crystals all throughout history. This is a fun lesson. It's very intriguing to go back and just to review how long we've really truly been using crystals. Just a little backstory for myself. I was first introduced to crystals particularly in the form of healing with crystals from my acupuncturist. And instead of just needling me, she was also using crystals on me as well. And I was very intrigued because I totally felt the difference. And she was also coming to the house, as many of you know, to needle on my son that needed some help as well. So in seeing the response and the crystals intrigued me, and it just got me into it basically. So I wanted to really look at the history of the crystals and to study how long have we been using these crystals, and it was fun to do this research for you, okay? For the millennium, crystals, minerals, gemstones have been used to bring about healing and enhance physical, emotional, and spiritual balance. The ancients must have somehow known that when worn, the energies of the stones would interact with the human electromagnetic system. And just with our energy fields, you know, you can tell, and especially with my son and children that are younger, the way they react when the crystals come near or when they don't. So it's very subtle, but it is definitely there, okay? Royals have worn crystals throughout history in their jewelry, crowns, thrones, and swords. Interestingly, the placement of the crystals on the crown on a royal head would activate their crown chakra. And the same goes for a necklace over the heart chakra, or a ring on fingers for energy meridians, and earrings to simulate different reflex points. It kind of makes you wonder if all jewelry was initially intended to connect healing stones to different energy points of our body. Crystals have also been used in burials and divination and in healing rituals for thousands, and I mean thousands of years. Here are some specific examples from the different cultures here and how they were used, okay? So the ancient Egyptians, of course, used the crystals, and they used the crystals mainly for protection and for health. They buried the dead with a piece of quartz on their forehead to help guide them to the afterlife. Dancers wore rubies in their belly buttons to enhance their sexuality, and necklaces over their heart was intended to bring love into one's life. The forehead crowns were also worn to stimulate the third eye, the imagination, their intuition. They even used ground up lapis lazuli and malachite as their makeup. Perhaps most interesting is the account of the pharaohs who carried a copper cylinder and zinc cylinder, but each one was filled with quartz, and it helped to balance the qi. It helped to balance the yin and the yang, but it helped to balance their energies. So the crystals were all over with the ancient Egyptians, which I find very interesting, you know, that even that long ago, they knew not to just place a crystal around the house or build something with the crystals. They knew that they weren't just another rock. Yes, they're beautiful, and I could see that they wore jewelry, but they wore the jewelry with a specific purpose, okay? And those were the Egyptians. Okay, so let's go on to the Greeks, what I found with the Greeks. The Greeks used to rub crushed up hematite before going into battle. That thinking made them invincible, it protected them, and it helped to reflect and deflect, I guess, you know, kind of reflect back to them. The name for amethyst is actually derived from a Greek word, means non-drunken, and we use amethyst now to help with addictions. Even the word crystal is also derived from the Greek because it is known as a Greek word to mean ice. And of course, crystals look like frozen ice. And in very early times, it was believed that they were just frozen ice that just couldn't be melted. The Romans used the crystals as different amulets and talismans. So basically as protection, they would wear it before they would go out into battle. They would put it, on their copper breastplate. And then they also used crystals as medicine and to attract into their life things that they were wanting. They use it to enhance their health. So in ancient India, the Hindu Vedas, the sacred 5,000-year-old religious texts, they discuss all the different crystals and using crystals for different ailments. For example, they would say that emerald would bring them good luck. And we still believe that today, that emerald is a stone of good luck, especially in matters of the heart. And Ayurvedic medicine has also recognized the healing powers of crystals for hundreds and hundreds of years. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incans, they all used the crystals. And what I find most interesting about all of this is that these different cultures at that time did not have a way, to communicate with one another. They just knew and believed in these healing powers of these crystals. And so I find that very interesting that these elders all knew this from all these different cultures without getting on Google, without getting on their email and telling each other about them, okay? All of these different societies, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incans, knew these powers of these crystals, as I was telling you. They knew that they would help to balance them and help to heal them on their physical and emotional plane. Crystals were also used to diagnose and treat diseases. So they would also use crystals to tell the future, basically looking into crystal balls and getting into that meditative trance-like state. They would have different visions that would come to them. And according to some accounts, the Incans considered certain stones, emeralds again, to be so powerful that they chose to die before giving the conquerors the location of those emerald mines. Different indigenous tribes, specifically the Native Americans, definitely knew the healing purposes and powers of the crystals. Our Indians, especially in the South, really prized turquoise. Turquoise is said to be a highly protective stone, but especially with traveling. And out west, when the weather would change, the different tribes would have to move around so that they wouldn't get snowed in, basically. Even the indigenous tribes in Australia still do use crystals to this day to diagnose different illnesses. And many of the stones are used just in their traditional jewelry. They especially loved, beyond turquoise, was the agates and onyx as well. Ancient Chinese, which is funny because, like I told you, it was my doctor of Chinese medicine that first introduced them to me. Even when they were needling people back then, a lot of times they would put clear quartz on the tops of their needles just to help to enhance that energy, to enhance that intention, and to help to open up that meridian, okay? So that is in the Chinese. The Chinese emperors also love to be buried in jade armor because jade is believed to bring in power and wealth. And then, of course, the ancient Japanese were skilled at the art of scrying, which we also talked about earlier, but just again, looking into like a crystal ball or to even just a flat crystal, but it's basically focusing that attention. If you think of the way we meditate now and looking at a candle flame, it's the same thing, but different visions come to us when we really focus our attention on that. The Tibetan Buddhists have considered quartz crystal spheres to be objects of great holy spiritual power, believing their properties could even assist with enlightenment. In Buddhism, the medicine Buddha is called the healing master of lapis lazuli radiance. And the rituals include meditating on lapis lazuli. So as you can see, crystals have been used throughout history. They're mentioned several times in the different Bible, and they talk about the 7 layers of heaven, which of course are made out of crystals that coordinate with our chakra systems. So I'll leave you with that today. Namaste, and I will see you again soon.